All right, welcome to another episode of Library Picker in Messing Library in the middle school at MICDS. This is where we poke around the shelves a little bit and see if we can find some titles that might be old in terms of their age, but are still really valuable in terms of their stories. Today let's start in the science fiction and fantasy section. A lot of really good new stuff in here, but there's some great old titles in here as well, and fantasy doesn't really age like some of the other genres. Here's a great one right here, Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. So this is actually a dystopian fantasy, which really just means that it's set in like a bleak, alternate kind of future, very similar to like the Hunger Games or the Maze Runner. In this one, the surface of the earth is kind of destroyed and everybody lives in these cities that float around the earth. And the larger cities hunt the smaller cities and feed off of their resources. And in fact, a lot of the more recent dystopian fantasies are comparing themselves to this book or referencing them in the reviews. So a lot of you are reading Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld right now, and that's a real steampunk kind of historical fantasy. If you liked any of those dystopian books, this is a great one for you. All right, let's move on to a different section. And fast forward here a little bit. Going over to our drama and comedy section. Now these titles age a little bit more, but they're still really great stories. Here's one that's worth a look. Freak the Mighty. This one's about two kids that are on kind of the fringes of middle school society, which means they don't really have any friends. They're picked on a lot. One of them is huge, but not very smart, and the other one is very small, very sick, but also very intelligent. And this is their story of friendship and their journey through the school year. The cover's a little bit dated. Take a look at that cover because we're going to talk about covers as we move on. One thing you have to realize about looking for books in the library that are a little bit older, they're great stories, but you kind of have to get past the cover. Sometimes the covers are really dated. We're moving into our action and suspense area, and here's another book along the shelf here that really doesn't have a great cover. The Ghost of Lost Island. It's a great book, but you might be turned off by the cover. This one's about a kid who sets off with his grandfather to their island to harvest wool from their sheep herd, and he deals with the idea of a ghost of a woman who drowned there years before. Great story, but again, you kind of got to get by the cover. This kind of cover was very popular 20 years ago when this book was published. Just because you don't like the cover doesn't mean it's not a great story. Let's head over to our historical fiction section. We're getting a lot of new books in this section too, but there's some old ones that are really good as well. Here's one on the top shelf. Murder at Midnight. This is a great book by a great author, Avi, and I'm just going to read you part of the inside dust cover. A deadly plot to overthrow King Claudio is unfolding in Renaissance Italy. Magnus the magician has been marked as an easy scapegoat for the traitor lurking within the king's court. Against all odds and certainty, his faithful new servant boy, Fabrizio, sets out to solve the mystery and prove his master's innocence before the stroke of midnight, lest Magnus face death and Fabrizio become homeless once more. That's a great one to check out if you get a chance. Let's see if we can look at a couple more books maybe. Whoa. If you haven't checked out our short story section, you might want to check that out at some point. We're adding a lot of titles to this area. And here's a great one right here. The Arrival by Sean Tan. Someone actually gave me this as a birthday gift a few days ago, and it's a really great book, but there are no words. The illustrations, however, are fantastic, and they tell a really, really great and deep story, and it's really detailed. Take time to flip through this book, but it's really worth your time to pick up and read through. Let's move on a little bit here to the grab and go shelf. Again, another section where tons of new titles are being added. Here's a great one right here, Runner by Carl Duker. Here's a perfect example of an older book, 5 or 6 years old, that's really getting checked out pretty often now because people have found out about it, and it's a really great story. Um, let's pull up the library website, and we're going to search for it. In fact, it is the number 5 most checked out book right now. So let's go to Runner, and we're going to click on the title, and we're going to click on Title Peak. It's out right now. But I'm going to scroll down, and there's a summary of it. It's talking about the genre, topics like war veterans, terrorists, runners, smuggling, and then it has the reviews. This book is really about a kid whose parents have some problems, and they live on a houseboat, and he's worried about paying for the rent of the mooring. And the boatyard owner offers him a job as a runner, which means taking mysterious packages from place to place. He's going to make a lot of money, but he doesn't know what's inside the packages. So as you can imagine, he runs into some interesting and action-packed adventures in this particular book. So that's it for this episode of Picking in the Library. Remember, this is a great place to find old stories, so don't be turned off by the cover. Look for some titles in the shelves that you might not otherwise pick up and give them a chance.